All right, so let's take a moment here and look at this problem. So here we have forces depicted acting on these different objects, um, basically the same image we had before. So the question is, which of these objects are accelerating to the right? And the second question is, which of these objects could be moving to the right? And then the third question is, which of these are in equilibrium? All right, so objects accelerating to the right. So that means we have to have a net force rightward. So the only object that has that is object C. So object C is accelerating to the right. Now, which objects could be moving to the right? All of them. All right. So they all could. We have no indication in which way these objects are moving. So they all could be moving to the right. So for example, if object A or object B were moving to the right, they're moving to the right with a constant velocity. Whereas object C would be speeding up since it's accelerating rightward, where object D would be slowing down if it was moving to the right. And same thing with object E, because the acceleration is pointing the opposite direction of the velocity. And which are in equilibrium. A and B are in equilibrium. We do not know whether it's static or dynamic equilibrium because we do not know if the objects are moving or not to begin with. All right, so let's look at a little bit more of an advanced example. All right, so we'll be practicing these types of skills throughout this unit. But let's suppose we're dealing with, so students are using a force table. So the force table is what's depicted here. So basically you have a table that has angle measurements on it, and then you have a string with over on top of pulleys with masses hanging from it. Right? Anyway, so they're doing an equilibrium lab. So three forces are exerted on a metal ring that remains at rest in the middle of the force table. One force has a magnitude of 5.3 newtons and is exerted at an angle of 30 degrees counterclockwise from the positive x-axis. Another force has a magnitude of 2.7 newtons and is exerted at an angle of 160 degrees counterclockwise from the positive x-axis. What are the magnitude and direction of the third force? All right, so basically we've got three forces going on. Actually, these are three tension forces acting on this ring. We know both the magnitude and direction, so we know the force value for two of these forces, and we want to figure out the third. We also know the table is in equilibrium. So take a moment here to write down the prompt and then hit continue. The first thing we'll do is draw a diagram. It's going to be easiest for us to draw our forces two-dimensionally. So basically, if we took a bird's eye view of this force table, and I'm going to, actually, here we go here. So I drew my ring here and I set up coordinate system. I have an X and Y axis. Sorry, it's slightly askew here, but it's meant to be flat and vertical. I'm going to call rightward positive and upward positive. So I know information about two forces, right? I know one of the forces, I'll call it F1, is up and to the right. Actually, let me write down here. It has a value of 5.3 newtons and an angle of 30 degrees. So I'm going to use the Greek letter theta here to represent angle. I'm going to do that very often in class. And I'll put a subscript of 1 to remind myself that's associated with what I'm calling force 1. And similarly, force 2 is up and to the left, has a magnitude of 2.7 newtons and an angle of 20 degrees there. Because we know it's 160 degrees from the positive x-axis, making this angle here 20 degrees. And then I think it's easier to deal with that angle, and we'll see why in a moment. So if I were to make a prediction then on our third force, because we know that this object's in equilibrium. So right now, if it was only these two forces acting on it, we see that that there is going to be a net force. Particularly, we can easily see, well, if we're kind of tugging up and to the right and up and to the left, well, our object's going to accelerate for sure upward in some respect. So we need some sort of downward force to compensate for that. And also, we see F1 has a larger magnitude than F2, so it has more of a rightward pull compared to the leftward pull of F2. So we would need then a kind of a leftward downward force to compensate for that. So we're going to predict that whatever force we get in the end should have a downward component and a leftward kind of component to it. So let's go about solving this. So the important thing in this problem is they tell us that the system's in equilibrium, meaning that the net force is zero. So acceleration is zero, so net force is zero. And what that means is since we've got two dimensions going on here, we're dealing with the angles, it's going to be very useful for us to think about this separately, dealing with what's going on horizontally and what's going on vertically. So since this whole system's in equilibrium, then if we sum the forces horizontally, that's going to be zero, and summing the forces vertically is zero. So the notation I've used here, you might see, oh, that looks like a backward E, and it kind of is. That's the Greek letter sigma, which means sum mathematically. So it's kind of a shorthand here. It's just saying that if I add up all the forces or component of forces acting in my x direction, they should sum to zero, and similarly for my y direction. Now, if you look at the forces, at least these two forces we're dealing with here, well, they're not completely acting horizontally or vertically. They're acting at angles. So we need to break these forces down into their horizontal and vertical components. So this is where our trig triangle, our right triangles, are going to be helpful again. So for force 1, so let's focus on this one, we can easily draw a right triangle. So our hypotenuse is going to be F1. So I can make my right triangle by drawing a vector to the right and a vector up. Right? So remember, we need basically what we're doing is we're adding up these vectors vectorially and using the tail to tip method, and our resultant vector is F1. Right? Another kind of quick shorthand way you can think about, well, which way are my arrows pointing? Well, F1 points kind of up and to the right. So we need an up vector and a right vector to do so. Now, excuse me. To now compute what the magnitude of the horizontal component is, we can use trig, right? So if we pick the cosine function, cosine's adjacent or hypotenuse, so rearranging, we end up with our hypotenuse multiplied by our adjacent leg. So, excuse me, our hypotenuse multiplied by the cosine of theta will give us our adjacent leg, which is what I wrote mathematically here. So my hypotenuse F1, I know, is a value of 5.3 newtons. And the cosine of I should have been careful with my subscripts here. This should be theta 1. So in cosine of theta 1 is 30 degrees. Multiplying these two things together, we get a value of 4.59 newtons. So I know my horizontal component has that magnitude. I can do a similar thing here vertically. My vertical component is opposite my angle now, so I use the sine function instead. So I plug in my numbers and I end up with 2.65 newtons. And I can do a similar thing here for my other force 2. This is leftward and upward, so my x component is to the left, my y component is straight up. Now, kind of the difference here, things we have to be careful with, is my coordinate system. So since we have the x component is leftward, that's a negative value. So I need to account for that negativeness. So I'm doing that here. You can, there's ways around not kind of putting the negative one in front. You can use the angle being the 160 degrees angle, and that'll take care of the negative sign for you, but I like to think about it this way instead. So similarly, plugging in here for the x component, we get a negative 2.54 newtons, and the y component's upward, a positive, and that's 0.923 newtons. All right, so now we need to think about, well, what values does this mysterious third force have in order to make our sums to be zero? All right, so I wrote that here for my horizontal components. So summing all my forces acting horizontally, well, we've got the x component of F1, we've got the x component of 2, and then we have the x component of this third force we're trying to figure out, and that should all sum to 0. So since I'm trying to find this x component of the third force, then I have 0 is equal to f1x, f2x plus f3x. So rearranging this, it's 0 minus f1x plus f2x. So plugging in our numbers then from what we found before, we end up with that our mysterious value for the horizontal component of our third force is negative 2.05 newtons. That negative sign is important because that is implying that our force is leftward, which is actually what we expected. We expected horizontally it acts leftward, which is what we found mathematically here. We can do a similar thing for the y direction, our vertical direction, right? The component of our three forces should all sum to 0. So plugging in the information we know, rearranging to solve for this third component, or for the y component of this third force, plugging in the numbers we know, we end up with a negative 3.573 newtons. Negative sign meaning downward, which is what we predicted. Now you might be thinking, all right, we're done, but we're not, right? We just computed the components of this mysterious third force. We need to compute the magnitude and direction of it. So to do that, I set up a trig triangle. Surprise, surprise. So I drew here my horizontal component of that force that's leftward and has a magnitude of 2.05 newtons. I've got a downward component of the force of 3.573 newtons. And adding those two vectors vectorially will give us a resultant vector of our total amount of force for this F3. And then I'm going to call that angle there angle theta 3, just for convenience sake. So looking at this, I can solve for this hypotenuse by using Pythagorean theorem. So using Pythagorean theorem leads to a magnitude of 4.1 newtons. I could also here, since we need to solve for direction as well, I'm going to use the inverse tangent function, just in case I computed my hypotenuse incorrectly, because I know the two legs of our right triangle. So using inverse tangent of the ratio of the legs gives us an angle of 60 degrees. And just for consistency's sake, since the problem tells us all our angles from the horizontal axis, I took that 60 degrees, added it to 180 degrees to get us to a value of 240 degrees counterclockwise with respect to WRT, with respect to the x-axis. All right, and finally, just a wrap-up question here for you. There's three forces acting on this object. In what direction does the object accelerate? So the answer here is D. So vertically, we see that force 3, we end up with the overall force downward, and then there's no kind of opposite force to F2. So we have F2 acting leftward and, and some amount of force acting downward. So we need a vector that's pointing down into the left, and that is D. All right, thank you.